Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to my channel. It's Shireen Palestine, and I want you to sit back while I dish up some major nostalgia. This week I'll be making al-Quds or ibsimsim, a Palestinian Middle Eastern toasted sesame bread. So here I've warmed 1 cup of water in the microwave for 35 seconds, and I'll be adding sugar to speed up the activation of the yeast. If you want to have a laugh at me, watch what happens next. She's empty. Yeah, I had no idea. We're in luck because I had a brand new one. Okay, so I'm going to be adding a tablespoon of yeast. And maybe that sounds like a lot, but I have tried this with 2 teaspoons, 2 1/4 teaspoon, 2 1/2 teaspoons, and 3 teaspoons. And I found that the 3 teaspoon gave me the highest and the best lift for this bread. Now, this bread does have a crust on it, so we do need that lift and that leavening from the yeast. I will be setting this aside for 10 to 15 minutes while I get my other ingredients ready. Now, the first 3 are tenderizers. This is milk, plain yogurt, olive oil, and salt. And of course, bread flour. Yes, white bread flour. It makes a huge difference because the bread flour has higher amounts of protein, which produce higher amounts of gluten. And that's the difference between a cake and bread. We're not trying to make a slice of cake. We're trying to make a slice of bread. A whole loaf of it. So I'm going to be dumping everything into the bowl before I start kneading. And by the way, this is homemade yogurt and it tastes like summer at my grandma's house. I will be adding the yeast, water, sugar mixture, and as you can see, she is frothy. It's gorgeous. This is one of my favorite sights to see. Look at it. Look at it. Let's not forget our jewelry. I still have dough in my rings and it won't come out. Okay, so I'm going to be kneading the dough for 7 to 9 minutes. I want to make a note. If you accidentally put a little bit too much of the liquids, just think I'm going to put the same amount of extra flour. So say you accidentally poured an extra tablespoon of milk, put an additional tablespoon of flour. But be careful not to add too much so that your dough doesn't become tougher as you go. Why I love ibsimsim so much is because it's attached to so many happy memories. My uncle Sleman, Khali Sleman, used to go to work for a week or 2 at a time. And when he'd come to my grandma's house, he'd have handfuls of bags, the freshest produce on the market, and the freshest baked bread right outside of our neighborhood. And as he was coming in, all of his kids and all of our cousins would just run up to him and take the bags from his hands and go straight for the kitchen where we'd rip open the bags, and most of them were bread, and we would open that bread and inhale that fresh toasted sesame aroma. Unforgettable. My cousins and I would collect around the table and we would form an assembly line, and every person had to take part in making sandwiches for the entire family. It was exciting, it was fun, it was so much energy. I mean, we ate, we laughed, we fought over bread. It was something to remember. Of course, I wish I could do this again, but we're no longer kids and it feels like everyone is in a different corner of the world. Okay, back to bread making. After I've kneaded and oiled my dough, I'm going to place this in a warmed oven to proof from 60 to 90 minutes. Don't forget your jewelry. My daughter has lost my rings so many times. Okay, so here in a bowl, I have 3 cups of sesame seeds. These are just white, untoasted sesame seeds. Don't get the toasted ones because we're going to be toasting them on the bread. Next to that, I have a bowl of cold water. Now, this cold water, we're going to submerge the dough in it for just a second. And this will help our dough do two things. First, it'll help the sesame seeds adhere to the dough. And second of all, it will help the bread form a crust as it bakes in the oven. Wow, a perfectly proofed dough. I love to inhale the aroma of the yeast in the relaxed dough. Of course, now I'm going to be punching this down adequately until it reaches its original size before I split it into 2 equal parts. Okay, now I'm going to be showing you not 1, not 2, but 3 different ways I try to roll these oblong shapes. The first is a razor. Yes, so after rolling my dough into a log shape, I take a razor down the center of the dough. And I realized here I had to press a lot harder than I originally thought. So I did this until I got a perfect line down the center. And then I separated it. Now you might feel like your dough is a little tacky, but that's okay. And that's what makes this dough really, really moist. The second way I will be demonstrating is by rolling the dough into a really long log. Then attaching it and rolling that seam so that it sticks together, forming an oblong oval shape. I mean, these look like big bagels, but the difference is bagels have to be boiled in advance before baking. Now, the third way, which was my favorite way, is to use a serrated knife. Do not use a straight knife. I tried to use a straight knife. It was a headache. But using a serrated knife here gave me more control. And when I was cutting it down the middle, I was using my fingers more closely to the center, and that helped me a lot. Now, this is the part where you want to make sure that both the sides are even, because that is how your bread will bake. So here I am again. As you can see, I'm bringing my fingers to the center to make it much faster and give me more control. I'm going to take that dough and for a split second, put it in the cold water before allowing it to drip for a couple more seconds and putting it in the bowl of sesame seeds. Pressing gently into the sesame seeds, I'm going to also be taking sesame seeds from the center and showering it on top of that dough, as you will see here, making sure to cover the entire surface area without stretching out the dough. After I'm done, I'm going to be placing this back onto my baking sheet where I will shape it for the last time before I proof it. Now, I did something here which I was not doing in my other trials. I did not separate that center enough here. And that's because I am still new to YouTube and the camera's in front of the dough and I'm kind of baking or doing all of this to the side, and it was giving me a hard time and I wasn't able to get a good grip on what I was doing correctly. Okay, so what I mean by that is put an inch of space in the center, not more, and please not less, so that it doesn't bake into itself, as you will see in the end. Okay, now my forever curious self decided to add another layer of interest to this bread. This is the Nothing But Bagels mix, and I am dipping that whole thing into it. I'm actually really excited. I'm very curious, and I know you are too. So stay tuned till the very end to get my verdict on this bad boy. I'm going to be preheating my oven to 475 degrees. Just in case you didn't see that, 475. My daughter kept putting her fingers in this. She wanted to help me so bad. She kept pulling at it and crying. She wanted to help mommy. In fact, I had to make another batch in the middle of the night just because she ruined the way that they look aesthetically, even though they tasted amazing. And that probably was my favorite loaf. Okay, now after baking for 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to mist this bread with water. As you see here, immediately after it comes out of the oven. Why? This thing has a crust on it. As it's drying, it gets tougher and tougher. To ensure that your bread is plushy and soft, please just take it from me, spray it down. You are going to be spraying this more than our last video, more than our cinnamon rolls. Spray it down like a good 20 or 30 sprays on each loaf of bread. Trust me, I have done this a good 8 times at this point in the last week. I know what I'm talking about. Okay guys, we are at the end and I'm going to show you how to serve this bread with a traditional Middle Eastern setup. So things like olives and cheese and olive oil and yogurt and all of the fresh veggies and fresh herbs you have in your garden. Fun fact, you can take the bottom of these green onions and plant them in your garden and watch them grow and give back to you over and over again. It's a great way also for kids to interact with nature. Now, I'm really wishing I had some company at this point, but unfortunately I was by myself. In fact, I wish I had the company of my Uncle Sliman, who was such an amazing person. I remember one time we were visiting family and I was really dressed up as per usual, and when I get really close to someone and I feel really comfortable, if you know me personally, I probably will end up sitting on the floor. And I remember I did so because the conversation was so full of love and excitement, and I found myself gripping my tea and just plopping myself on the floor, and everyone just looked at me like, oh my God, what are you doing? And I remember my uncle just pushing the table aside and sitting on the floor next to me and saying that there's nothing better in the world than to sit on the floor and that I was going to sit with him. And he actually sat with me for the remainder of the day that turned into night, an unforgettable night at that. He taught me how to be confident and face the world and love my family unconditionally. So this is dedicated to you, Khali Sliman, for all the memories you planted in my life growing up and that continue to flourish in my family and now with my children alike. I so look forward to sharing what other goodies were in those bags that he used to come home with. We would literally fight each other before we even got to my grandma's house, just so that we can get to them first. Those recipes I hold near and dear to my heart, not just because they tasted absolutely delicious, but they were shared with loved ones. And that is what I want to do here on my YouTube channel, to share. This bread was so soft, and in fact, I have a couple loaves even from a week ago, and it's still so soft. And that is because we sprayed it down immediately as it was cooling straight out of the oven. If you like what you see here, please go ahead and subscribe. And if you want to see when I post my videos, press that bell notification button. It's easy and it's free. And if you want to see me continue to push myself to my limits, share this video. I hope you enjoyed what I spent a whole week doing, baking bread. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy. Hey, did you watch last week's video? If not, please click here.